So with Hellboy the Crooked Man being fast tracked, which to put it as my friend Jason Voorhees 2011 said, as he put it, that's a bit of a red flag, ain't it? And he's not wrong. But I was thinking, and some of you guys have talked about ideas in the comments section for the previous video where I gave my thoughts on the upcoming Hellboy movie. I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about like what other films in the Hellboy universe could work. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, what characters are there? Glad you asked, because Hellboy is a very vast and very expansive universe. There's a lot, like you could, no lie, and I'm shocked they haven't done this before, especially Universal, because I think it's Universal Universal or Lionsgate that owns the rights, the movie rights to Hellboy. So I wonder, so I'm just kind of like, yeah, you could do a whole cinematic universe. One of those film companies, either Lionsgate or Universal, I can't remember which, yeah, they could just do if they want to do the cinematic universe game, they can just do Hellboy. Like, they can just do a Hellboy universe, and it would work. There's so many characters outside of Hellboy. I mean, the BPRD themselves. So let's get started with the first one, first and foremost. And I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me on this. We need a Lobster Johnson movie. This is required. Like, a Lobster Johnson a film would be awesome. Like, kind of make it like in the vein of like The Rock. Like, I could actually be totally cool with Joe Johnston directing this, who had done he had done the remake of The Wolfman, he had done Jumanji, he had done The Rocketeer. I think he did the Rocketeer, and he did the first Captain America movie, Captain America: The First Avenger. So, and he always had like these fun Indiana Jones vibes to his films, like fun adventure films. And that's like, you could have like if you get a good horror writer with Joe Johnston, I think you could do something really cool here. Like, I think you could definitely do something interesting with a Lobster Johnson film. Now, who could play Lobster in this film? Well, if he were just a wee bit younger, Bruce Campbell would have been perfect as Lobster Johnson. Now, if we got an animated film, yeah, I'd say get Bruce Campbell to voice Johnson. Like that, like, get him to voice Lobster. Like, that's just kind of perfect, isn't it? As for live action, that's a tough one, because Topher Grace, no, not Topher Grace, I almost said him. Oh, what's his name? In that brief scene with Lobster Johnson, he was pretty good. Yeah, I lost. He played Sandman in Spider-Man 3. That's what you most remember. But he played Lobster Johnson in Quick Scene. He was really cool. As for like who could play him in live action, like now, I mean, I'm really bad at fan casting, really. Like, I'm really bad at fan casting. But I'm sure, but like I said, if he was just a wee bit younger, I would have definitely said Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell for Lobster. And there's so many, like, ideas and stories you could go with, because it's very much like a paranormal, these are like paranormal adventure stories with also like a crime noir story to them. That's the whole idea of Lobster Johnson, is that it's X-Files meets meets a pulp noir story. Like, that's the best way to really explain like a lot of it. Like X-Files meets The Rocketeer. That's the perfect explanation. Is X-Files meets The Rocketeer. That's how you describe Lobster Johnson. So there you go. As for others, Sir Edward Grey. Sir Edward Grey would be another phenomenal character. Like, another character they've referenced in the Hellboy universe. He's been referenced several times over. He's been brought up a lot. He was kind of one of the architects for like paranormal investigation in the Hellboy universe, and a lot of his stuff is like this dark gothic storytelling. A lot you see in like James Wan's The Conjuring. Especially, I think, and it would be really cool to do like period piece horror and do it well. And Edward Grey would be really cool, of like this demonologist who is like battling against these unknown societies and whatnot. I think it would be real. I think he would really work as that kind of, as this dark horror kind of story. As who could play him, I have no. I'm not even going to bother with casting, honestly, because I suck at it. But Sir Edward Grey would be another great character to really play with. As for another one, we're gonna go a little oddball here, but Frankenstein. Yeah, the Frankenstein monster, for those who don't know, is actually a character in the Hellboy universe. He goes on these wild adventures on his own. Like Frankenstein Underground would be a fucking awesome movie. If you don't know what Frankenstein Underground is basically after Hellboy battles for the monster falls, finds his way to like the center of the earth and fights dinosaurs and Nazis and Nazi dinosaurs. It's pretty awesome. Tell me you wouldn't want to see that as a film. Like, tell me right to my face that you wouldn't want to see that as a film. Like, right to my face. Tell me you wouldn't want to see the Frankenstein monster, like, fighting his way through, like Nazis and riding dinosaurs. Yeah. That just writes itself, doesn't it? It just writes itself. So there you go. And of course, I am going to reference the BPRD. The BPRD themselves have tons of characters. Liz Sherman, obviously Abe Sapien. I think Abe Sapien, honestly, could hold his own. I definitely 100% believe that Abe Sapien could hold his own in his own movie. Absolutely 100%. I think Abe could hold his could carry his whole movie. Yeah, his own movie. And people forget that Abe and Liz are the ones who are together, not Abe and Hellboy. I mean, I'm sure there's fan fiction of that, but I mean Liz and Hellboy. Yeah, Liz and Hellboy aren't together in the comics. It's actually Liz and Abe. And yeah, hell, there's a comic out called Hellboy in Love, which it kind of explains that. So, yeah. It's, yeah, I think a lot of people, I just blew people's minds. Also, I think I tripped, it was like, wait, Hellboy and Abe were a thing? No, they weren't, but there are, like I said, there is probably, like, tons of fan fiction out there. Like I said, Abe himself has enough stories on his own to really do something with it. The Plague of Frogs would be an awesome movie, I think, but the problem is there's so much to the Plague of Frogs that there's a lot to really digest. So that would, but I think you can do that as like a trilogy in of itself, or Hell on Earth. I think the BPRD could either work as a series or as a trilogy of movies. I think the BPRD would be really cool on their own. You wouldn't even, like, they don't even need Hellboy half the time. So, you know, I think that would be cool. I also think that you could do stories on the origins of the BPRD. I think those films could be I think those could work as films. As for others, this isn't now, the last thing I'm going to bring up in here isn't really in the Hellboy universe, but it is from Mike Mignola, and you'd be actually forgiven if you did think this was part of the Hellboy continuity. And that is Baltimore. I think Baltimore would work really good as a movie. I've actually talked about it a few times, and I've talked about how much I love it. For those who don't know what Baltimore is, this story follows a different continuity of World War I, where a plague basically ended the war. Like this plague showed up and just fucking, like, everyone was just like, fuck it, we're going home. So World War I ended differently, and it follows a man named Henry Baltimore, who was a vampire slayer, out to hunt down the man who killed his wife and ruined his life, as well as hunt down and also destroy this being known as the Red King, while also battling other supernatural entities along the way. Like I said, you'd be forgiven if you thought that was part of the Hellboy universe, but it's not, and I think it would definitely work as a cool, movie in of itself. So Baltimore, even though it's not a Hellboy property, I am going to lump it in here real quick. So you guys tell me in the comments below, what Hellboy characters would you love to see get movies? Just comment below, let me know. I know a lot of us want Lobster. I think that's our first and foremost pick, but there are so many other Hellboy characters that could do in their own... And Hellboy could work as a cinematic universe. Really, it could. And I just only scratched the surface with a few of them, honestly. So yeah, you guys comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.